Hey gang, this is Jeff with MissionMusician.com, and today I want to talk about parallel processing, one of my all-time favorite techniques in mixing. You may have heard the term, you may not know what it is. All parallel processing is taking a track, copying it in some instances, and altering that track in a different way, and then blending it in with the original track. That's all parallel processing is. Now, there's different things you can do as far as like there's parallel compression. You can do a parallel channel and put some distortion on it and blend it in. You can do a high shelf EQ on a vocal to give it air and blend it in. And if today is what, January 28th. If you are a subscriber to Mission Musician, the monthly tutorial video will be sent out February 1st, where I go into pretty good detail on how I parallel process vocals. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do a YouTube video of that here. That's only for my subscribers. So if you're not a subscriber, sign up over at www.missionmusician.com, and you'll get that video in a couple days. It's going to go out February 1st. But I want to show you how I like to parallel process some other stuff. So let's start with the snare drum. Let me get this up here. So I don't know if you watched the Slate Digital plugins only mix on my YouTube channel. You'll remember that I wasn't happy with the snare drum sound through that mix, and I'm still not happy with it. So here's what it sounds like. And I actually toned it down quite a bit. I did have it a lot brighter, and it was just cutting through the mix too much. So let me turn this off really quick. So let's listen to these snares together. All right, so nothing to write home about, but if I wanted to add, let's say, some beef to it, I could duplicate this track, put an EQ on it, and just bump up the mid frequencies in it. But what I like to do instead of that is, so let me copy, or I'm sorry, let me duplicate this and just the active playlist, and I'm going to call this snare distortion. You're probably wondering, well, why would you want to put a distortion on a snare? Well, because it actually sounds really cool. Not in the context of itself, but in the context of the drums, it sounds pretty good. So I'm going to use, let's see, I'm going to try, let me think here. I could use lo-fi. I could, I'm wondering all of a sudden where all of my, never mind. So let me try SansAmp. I forgot this was a stereo channel. Let me see something really quick. Yeah, there it is. All right, so I could put like the 11 overdrives on these if I wanted to. I don't know how great those will sound, but let's just see what we got here. All right, so on its own, doesn't sound that great. And you could, when you parallel process, you can even put EQs on, compressors, whatever. We're just going to blend this signal in and see if we can make the snare drum sound bigger. You see, it doesn't take much at all because this is a distortion plugin and I got the preamp cranked. It's raising the gain. I could back the level of it off if I wanted to, and let's maybe do that and blend it in. Now, what it is doing is it's adding more sustain, and I don't know that I necessarily want that. So what I may do, or what, if I was going to use that on this track, what I may do is gate it. Let's see. Solo this. So that's a pretty cool effect. I like that a lot. So I'm just going to leave that for now. So that's one thing you can do with the snare. If you wanted to brighten the snare without actually brightening the snare, you could duplicate it. And also, if you want to get a big fat snare drum sound, a different thing you can do. Let's see, let's take an 1176. I like the blue one for the snare drum. I normally just load up Rock My Snare. That's a pretty good one. Let's listen here. Now, that is making it a lot more snappier, and if you watch the video of me mixing this song, you know that that's not what I want, but I'm just showing you this as something you can do to help your snare out. So let me solo this and solo this, and I'm going to blend this in. Alright, so that's one thing you could do. Let's see here. Let's put an EQ on. And let's bring this back to about 5K or so. And really boost it. And then let's roll the rest of this down. So this is kind of emulating the snares sound. If you didn't use a bottom mic, you could use this. Let's listen to it in solo. That sounds horrible, but let's listen to it with the other snares. So you can really get a pop sound with that. Or let's roll this all the way back. If your snare wasn't beefy enough, somewhere around 200 is usually the weight of the snare. 200, 150, somewhere in there. Let's listen to this. Now, it's not having that dramatic of an effect because I already have 212 boosted. So it's not really having a very dramatic effect. But you can see the... Well, let's just... Here, let's bypass this. Let's try that. So I like what that's doing. Then another good one is, I'm going to get off the snare here and we'll go over to bass. Let's delete this. Actually going to leave the snare distortion on there for the moment because I kind of dig that. And I don't know if I talked about it in this video, but I am parallel processing the snare drum, the kick drum, and the toms all through this comp channel. And you can see I just have a compressor on it, so I'm parallel compressing it and blending it in. And I've already made a parallel process on the bass, but I'm going to redo it with a different plugin that I really like to use. Let's see. Come on. Well, what is going on here? There we go. So what I love to do with the bass is, well, there's two things you can really do with the bass. You can add some low end in if you want and just like make a sub bass. And let's just try that really quick. So let's take an EQ and low pass everything down to 250-ish. And then maybe boost around 100. And I'm still going to roll off to about 60-ish. All right, so if you wanted to add some sub bass into the bass, you could do this. And let me bring the volume of this down. All right, so that's one way you could thicken up a bass. Likewise, you could put twang in there by boosting the high frequencies. I'm not going to do that, but let's go. I love using SansAmp on the bass, although now that I have 11, I may try it with some other distortions too. One thing I always do, though, is I don't want the real low end getting distorted. I just don't like the way that sounds. It makes the bass looser in the mix, and I don't like that. So I'm going to high pass up to 250-ish. That's fine. And then there's a good preset on here called Crunchy Bass. So let's listen to that. I actually like to roll the lows off of this too. Right, so real mid-rangey sounding. You hear how the bass kind of gets lost without this track? I almost always do this in a rock mix or a pop mix. Almost always, because it just gets the bass to cut through a little bit more. It's a little bit more defined. You can hear what the bass player is playing. And I always want to hear what the bass player's playing. I like, especially on this song, the little runs that he does. Now, that's not the best example to use in this song, and I honestly would probably automate it down in the verse section when the acoustic guitar is playing, because I don't necessarily want to hear a distorted bass. I just like what the harmonics are adding to the song. So in the chorus, I would probably turn it up. Let's. Whoops. If I can find a chorus, here we go. I think this is it. Yeah, it's not working in the verses, but it's definitely working in the choruses. Okay, so that's another thing you can do with bass, and then there is still, let's see. Sometimes I like to, let's put an EQ on and roll it down to 250. Oops, wrong one. Now I'm just keeping in the lows, getting rid of all the highs, and I like to squash the crap out of this with a compressor. Let's use the CLA 3A. Let's see here. And what that's going to do is even out the performance and keep the low end steady. So let's listen to this in context here. it's tightening it up a little bit. And then there's one other thing that I like to do with bass sometimes when I'm not thrilled with the bass sound. Or even if I am thrilled with the bass sound, you can always add, enhance. And that is, let's find it here. This is like, I think, I can't remember how much this is. I want to say it's fairly cheap though. It's the Ampeg. Is it Ampeg? Yeah, Ampeg bass pack for Amplitude. That's the only thing I use Amplitude for. Is this? Let's see, which one do I use? I can't remember now. That's it. All right, so if the bass is thin, or I want a rounder tone, or I just want a different tone, then I can use this bass amp simulation. Whoops. Now, one thing that I do always stress with this is sometimes when you run it, and I don't know why it is when you run it through a plugin that the phase can get messed up, because these are both the same tracks, but I've had instances where I've had to flip the phase. So I'm just going to check that really quick. Normally it only happens with a DI signal and a bass amp signal, but for whatever reason with this Amplitude 3, sometimes I actually have to invert the phase. It's kind of weird. So let's listen to these together. And here's a perfect example. Hear how thin and weak and awful that sounds? And boom, there we go. I have no idea why that happens with Amplitude, but I'm sure somebody out there does, and I'm sure someone will comment. So I normally have to, well, not normally, it's just sometimes I have to invert the phase on after Amplitude. So let's blend these together here. So that's adding some more roundness. Listen to this. Right? So that's kind of cool, and I kind of dig that. Get my session back to where it was. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. All right, and I don't parallel process guitars too much, but I mean, there's some things you can do with the guitar, like for example, well, I mean, you can do basically everything that I've shown you. Let's just... You can get it to, in other words, I would probably, instead of doing that, I would probably roll this down. Let's see what this sounds like. So you can parallel EQ process guitars if you want. Sometimes I'll get sent a song where the guitar player has used the exact same sound on both guitar tracks, and I try to encourage people not to do that if possible. At least change your amp settings, or flip the switch on your guitar, use your neck pickup, something to change the guitar sounds from different takes. So sometimes what I'll do if that happens is, let's just kick this guy on and see what happens. And this really isn't, I don't know why I'm showing this, because this really isn't a parallel processing thing. I'll normally, if I get two of the same guitar tracks, it won't be parallel processed. I'll actually put something like Sans Amp or S-Gear or something on the guitar to change up the tone. But if you wanted to dirty the tone up a little bit without really affecting the tone, so that's one way of doing it. I don't know that I'm a fan of that too much, but because these guitar tracks are already really good. Let's see. I've shown this trick before, so I'm not going to show it. There's a video on my YouTube channel called Adding Girth to Your Kick Drum, and that is a form of parallel processing. You can watch that if you want. I am not going to do the vocals because that is for my subscribers only. Let's see. So if you get a chance, go over to www.missionmusician.com and subscribe. You get a free bundle, no strings attached at all. So yeah, that's it. I'm going to wrap this video up here. Hopefully you've gained some knowledge of parallel processing and are excited to try this on your own tracks, to add thickness, to add warmth for a special. You can use reverb as a parallel process to set the vocal back, and you can delay that reverb and all kind. The possibilities are endless, and I love tinkering around with this kind of stuff when I have time to do it. It's a lot of fun. So go open up a mix and just try to parallel process something. Add some EQ and blend it in. Compress the crap out of something and blend it in with the original track. See how it sounds. And if doesn't sound good, add an EQ after the compressor, change it. You can do so many different things with parallel compression, with parallel processing, which is why I love it so much. So thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you like these kind of videos. Comment below if you want, if you have any questions. I'm pretty quick on answering the questions down there. And I am active on my YouTube channel, so don't think that you won't get your comment answered. If I can answer it, I will, obviously. So thanks for watching, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.